It's been a while since the last video, so cheers. I'm just sipping on a little tea here because the pollen count in Washington has been ridiculous, and if you're wondering if Doodlebug is going to make a visit, I can answer that for you. She's right there on her perch, doing her quality assurance as she usually does. So funny. I'm going to put this back up there. You can tell I've gotten out of the habit of making videos. I don't even know how to put my webcam back. There we go. So I went and made a bunch of videos last week and went to publish them and realized that they didn't have any audio, so I could only laugh. What else can you do, right? It was pretty funny. I've gotten out of the habit of doing this, so many of you have written to me and said, what's happened? The videos have stopped. Why have they stopped? When are you making more? What can you talk to us about? And I guess what I'll say is they've stopped because life has gotten busy. My son's older and a lot more time with him. I have an autoimmune disease that likes to play peekaboo, and some days there's just not an openness to do videos. So that's why they stopped. It's not for any other reason except life being busy and crazy and chaotic like everyone else. You know, you can speak only so much about freedom, liberation, whatever you want to call it. You can only speak about it so many different ways. And there's really nothing new to say here. So I speak openly about what is in my own current experience, because that's all I can really talk about. I can talk to you guys for days, hours, years, months about pretty much anything, but what relates here in this moment is talking about what's present, which is learning to live with the experience of physical pain. 2 years ago, as I've openly shared on my Facebook page, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disease where the thyroid attacks the body and basically thinks that the body is a foreign object and tries to kill it. You know, for several years, lots of very random and bizarre kind of symptoms happening here, and each time you go in, you know, doctors try to treat that specific symptom, and that's basically the culmination or the gist of trying to find out what's going on with the body when you have an autoimmune disease, is that the symptoms are just forever changing. Long story short, sticking with one particular Western doctor who also is very homeopathic, we were able to come to some resolution that that's what's going on here. For many, I think that getting that diagnosis, it would be earth-shattering. But for years, I had been told that I might have lupus, and I may have Lyme's disease. I may have rheumatoid arthritis. They couldn't figure out what it was, but the weight just kept coming on the body, and the sickness just kept coming on the body. And the final thing, which to this day still cracks me up, that caused the diagnosis to happen was going in for the fact that my skin was just peeling off of my body. You know, my face, my scalp, my whole body was just like a giant lizard. I was just scaly and dry and falling apart. And that was the one thing that caused the doctor to run the thyroid labs again, because they had run them before and they all looked normal. Long story short, very long story short, there was a daily experience of physical pain that comes with autoimmune disease, and it varies. So what I have learned over the last 2 years is to honor and celebrate and love that pain, because everything else hurts. To fight it hurts. To tell it should go away hurts. To tell it it's not real hurts. to tell it that it should be anything other than it is hurts. So each of those brings its own form of suffering. And to make it into a new false story, meaning saying that it's here for some purpose or some lesson, also feels painful here, because to me that says there's some expectation for it to go away. And there's no knowing that that will be the case. So what has happened in the last 2 years is a gentle opening of acceptance for it to be here. When the pain's here, loving it just like I would love anything else. Many have written to me because they have their own experience of physical pain, and they'll say things to me like, but mine isn't intermittent, mine's every day, all the time. And I can't relate to that because that isn't my experience. I can say yesterday was a good day and today wasn't a good day, and not even know if that's true. I'm pointing to some past moment, but I can only point to it from the perspective or through the eyes or the lens that I call Kelly. What I've learned is loving the pain. That's all I can I can express from an acceptance perspective, is loving the pain. So an example of this, and I call it my meditation, is to recognize when the pain is present. Obviously, recognizing it isn't too difficult because it's pain and it's happening. So we'll use for an example pain in the chest, because that's one of the things that happens with Hashimoto's, at least in this story, is sometimes there's tremendous chest pain, and it almost feels like you're having a heart attack, and it comes very strong, and the breath can feel tight and constricted. So let's just visualize that pain's coming up into the chest, and in that moment, several things may happen. One is I want it to go away, right? The immediate physical fight or flight response of the human body is I want it to go away, or I want to get away from it. Yet what I've learned is that that's not going to change anything. The next one could be, here it is, I hate it. It doesn't feel good. I don't want it to be here. There's things I'd rather be doing. And that doesn't feel good either, because, of course, just that resistance to it is going to make it more profound. It's going to hurt more. It's going to be more in depth. And then there's that, what appears like the ulterior or alternative, which isn't even the case. It's just, the only way I can explain it is you're not choosing one or the other. There's just this willingness to say, I resolve to the fact that none of the other things have worked, and then all of a sudden what's left is, then I'm going to love this. I'm going to just love this. This pain, the hands will go on it, and it will be told it's loved. It's loved. It's okay that you're here. It's okay. And I know it's okay because you're here. The sending of the love to it and acceptance of it and breathing into it and just acknowledging of it is no different than anything else. There's a video I made some time ago, probably 2 or 3 years ago, about loving thoughts that are somewhat like a 2-year-old. And you have 2-year-olds on either side, and one we call the happy thoughts and one we call the sad thoughts. And that one happy thought is welcomed up into the lab, and the one sad thought is told to go away because I don't want to feel sad. And what does a 2-year-old do when you tell it to go away? It has a tantrum. It falls on the floor. It kicks its feet. It starts screaming louder. It gets more boisterous. It climbs up your leg. And make sure you know and notice that it's there. And physical pain is no different. It wants the same thing each happening appears to be wanting, which is love, acceptance, a willingness to let it be here because it's here. It doesn't matter what it is. Physical pain is a happening. It is an expression of itself. It is appearing and then letting go, appearing and then letting go. we want to call physical pain something else. We want to label it, we want to fix it, we want to medicate it, we want to numb it, we want to do all these things other than the one thing that it's asking for, which is a pure acceptance of it being here. Sorry, my leg's fallen asleep. Another symptom. Yes, the body. The body is just a funny engine. It is a funny, funny engine. It's a machine. It does itself. And this experience of coming to acceptance or allowance of this pain, it just is. It just is. Or it isn't. It's not anything more than that. I had a friend who's a Facebook follower write to me about some experience with pain recently as well, and I shared this. I shared this expression of loving the pain. It seems so simple. It really does. It seems so simple. We want to understand why the pain is here. We need a reason for it, thinking that if we have a reason, that will make it go away. But getting that diagnosis did not change anything. It didn't relieve the symptoms. It didn't make it go away. It just gave me something to attach it to. Okay, this hurts, so now that's part of the disease. And it's really funny because I actually had an experience a couple weeks ago where I just ignored my body, just assuming that it was part of this condition and there was something completely separate going on. So again, it's interesting what the mind does. It doesn't matter what it's about. The mind will attach, commingle, create, establish, connect, expect, formulate. It will just busy itself. That's what it does. It's really funny when you think about it. I mean, I laugh quite a bit now at just the whole idea of it. The body, the thoughts, the mind, how they seem disconnected, yet they're one. How one seems to destruct the other, yet they're not separate. The mind wants to place blame. It wants to say, why are you going through this? It wants to have stories of this being a lesson, this being something that's teaching you something. Therefore, you can conquer it so that you can say that you did. It goes on and on. Physical pain. It's a happening. Like anything else, it can be loved just as it is. That's the experience here. Until next time, loving you much, very much.